Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm 28 years old and have two kids, ages 6 and 7 at the time this happened. My younger brother was 15 then, and he and our mother have this toxic relationship where they're constantly at each other's throats. Both of them think they're never wrong about anything, and it's been getting worse since he became a teenager. They feed off each other's drama, and honestly, I try to stay out of it most of the time because it's exhausting. Our mother has always had issues with alcohol, though she's gotten better recently. But back then, when she drank, she became this completely different person. Mean, vindictive, and just plain nasty. She'd say things that would cut you to the bone, and then act like nothing happened the next day. So anyway, I'm at the carnival with my kids and their father, just trying to have a nice family day out. The kids are running around, going on rides, eating way too much cotton candy. It's one of those perfect spring days where everything feels right with the world. Then my phone starts going off like crazy. Call after call after call. I almost ignore it because we're having such a good time, but something tells me I should answer. It's my brother, and he's crying. Not just upset, but full-on sobbing into the phone. He begged me to come get him because he couldn't stay at home anymore. I asked him what was going on, trying to stay calm. He told me that our mother had been drinking again. It went completely crazy. According to him, she broke down his bedroom door trying to get to him, and he had to barricade himself inside with his dresser. Now, I love my brother, but he has this habit of making everything sound like the end of the world. A small argument becomes World War III in his version of events. So I'm listening to this, trying to figure out how much is actually true. I told him that if he really needed to come stay with me, we'd figure it out. But I explained that I wasn't just going to show up and take him without talking to our mother first. I knew how she gets when things like this happen. He said she wouldn't listen to reason because she was completely wasted at that point. Right then, my phone beeped with another call. It was our mother. I told my brother to hold on, but the call went straight to voicemail. I could see she left a message, so I told my brother I'd call him back after I figured out what was going on from her end. The voicemail she left was absolutely unhinged. I'm standing there in the middle of a family carnival, holding my phone away from my ear because she was screaming so loud. She yelled that I better not even be thinking about coming to get him. She threatened to call the police and say that I kidnapped him or that I was helping a runaway. She said I would go to jail and told me not to test her. I just stood there staring at my phone. My kids were asking if I was okay because I probably looked like I'd seen a ghost. Their father took them to get some popcorn while I tried to process what just happened. I decided to call her back and try to defuse the situation. Maybe if I explained that I told my brother no, unless she agreed to it, we could all calm down and handle this like adults. The phone call was a disaster from the first second. I tried to apologize for any confusion and explained that I told my brother I wouldn't come get him unless she was completely okay with it first. She cut me off immediately and accused me of saying I wouldn't come unless she was drinking or unless he wanted to run away. Her voice had that mocking tone she gets when she's been drinking. I told her that wasn't what I said at all. I repeated that I told him I wouldn't come get him unless she agreed to it first. She said she was sure that's what I claimed, but she didn't have to worry about it anymore because she already called the cops and told them about my plan to kidnap him. I felt like the ground dropped out from under me. Here I am at a public carnival with my children, trying to be the responsible adult in this situation, and she's accusing me of planning to kidnap my own brother. I lost it at that point and yelled that I was at a carnival with my children, her grandchildren, and that I wasn't coming to kidnap anybody. I asked her what the hell was wrong with her. She said I would be arrested for this and that both my brother and I would learn who was in charge. That's when I hung up on her. How do you even respond to something like that? But then reality hit me. She actually called the police. What if they believed her story? What if they came looking for me here at the carnival? I had my kids with me, and the last thing I wanted was for them to see their mother getting arrested over some insane misunderstanding. Luckily, our town's not huge, and I recognized one of the police officers working the carnival detail. He used to be my science teacher in high school before he became a deputy. I walked over to him, probably looking pretty frazzled. I told him this was going to sound crazy, but I needed him to verify that I was at the carnival with my kids and had no intention of kidnapping anyone. He looked confused and asked me what I was talking about. I explained the whole situation to him. My brother calling upset, me trying to be the voice of reason, and our mother threatening to have me arrested for kidnapping. He listened to the whole thing with this expression that went from confused to amused to slightly annoyed. He asked me to clarify that my mother called in a kidnapping report because I might pick up my brother from her house even though I told him I wouldn't do it without her permission. I told him that was exactly right. He said so. I was here at the public carnival with witnesses everywhere, including him, a police officer. I told him that was correct. He actually started chuckling at that point and said he could definitely verify my whereabouts and intentions. He told me not to worry about it. About an hour later, while my kids were on the Ferris wheel, the deputy came back over to me with this huge grin on his face. He said he just got an update about the situation at our mother's house. I asked him what happened, dreading the answer. He told me that officers did respond to her call, but when they got there, they found her extremely intoxicated and disorderly. He said my 15-year-old brother was drunk too. I asked if he was kidding. He said no and explained that since she had no legitimate reason to call for police assistance, was clearly intoxicated in the presence of a minor, and that minor was also intoxicated, they arrested her for child endangerment and disorderly conduct. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. On one hand, I felt vindicated that the truth came out. On the other hand, it was still my mother getting arrested. About 3 hours later, my phone rang from the county jail. It was our mother saying she needed me to come bail her out. After everything that had just happened, the audacity was breathtaking. I told her no, and that she might consider it a kidnapping since I couldn't take that chance. Then I hung up on her. My brother ended up staying with our aunt that night until our mother sobered up and got released the next morning. The charges were eventually dropped after she agreed to attend alcohol counseling, which she actually followed through with for once. The whole experience really opened my eyes to how far our mother would go to control a situation, even when she was completely in the wrong, threatening to have me arrested for kidnapping when I was literally trying to de-escalate the situation at a public carnival with my children. It still boggles my mind. The good news is that our mother did get help and has been sober for almost a year now. I live in Australia where we have some really nice beaches. This beach we normally go to isn't too fancy but is mainly good for swimming in the deeper parts. The facilities are really good, and most of the time it's upper middle class people who go there, plus surfers in other parts of the beach. So of course we have our fair share of entitled people. The forecast said it would be an absolute scorcher on that day, a maximum of 42 degrees Celsius. We decided to go to the beach that day to cool off. My mom packed our usual beach gear while my dad loaded the car. My sister and I were excited to spend the day in the cool ocean water. When we arrived at the beach, the sun was already beating down hard. We quickly set up our spot, and my sister and I rushed into the water while our parents relaxed on their beach chairs. The ocean felt amazing against our skin after the oppressive heat. Me and my sister were swimming in the sea when we noticed something floating on top of the sea that wasn't foam from waves. My sister and I both saw it, but I was closer to it. It was still fairly deep in the water, so it couldn't have been there long. My sister asked if I could grab that thing for her. I went out to grab it and it was a Ziploc bag. My sister and I swam closer to the shore to look at it, and we weren't prepared for what was in it. $120 of cash, mostly in 20s and 10s. The Ziploc bag had pretty much nothing else in it, no wallet, so we couldn't trace the cash to a person. My sister and I went back to where my mom and dad were sitting on the beach, thinking about what to do. If this had been like $10 or something, we probably would have kept it. But this was a lot of money, and someone probably was looking to reclaim it. My dad was impressed and said, "We better look for who owned it then." He told my sister and me to go hand it in to the lifeguards. We walked to the lifeguards and I caught this entitled woman sitting near them, eyeing us and the Ziploc bag. I told them we were looking to hand this in for someone to claim if they were missing it. The first lifeguard said they'd keep it safe. I was feeling kind of insecure with the entitled woman now, so I decided to keep an eye on the lifeguard station for anyone. Sure enough, the entitled woman didn't even wait 2 minutes to get in there. I was too far away to overhear anything, but I was sure it was about the money. The second lifeguard walked over to us with the entitled woman. The second lifeguard said the entitled woman claimed she lost the money in this Ziploc bag a while ago, and they were wondering if we could link the money back to her. My sister said there was no identifying feature on the Ziploc to trace it. The second lifeguard asked where we found it. He said it probably would have washed up with some other stuff if it was a while ago. I said it was in the dumping area over there. The first lifeguard said it couldn't have been there long then, otherwise time would have made sure that it washed up onto the shore. My dad said it was strange that the entitled woman was claiming it then, considering that she was completely dry. The entitled woman said 1 second and after a minute came back with her kid. It was about 9 and wet from the sea. The kid said he must have dropped it while he was out there. The entitled woman said to please give them the money because she was going to go buy her kid an ice cream and some video games. The second lifeguard said they couldn't give the money unless they could conclusively prove that she had it. The entitled woman looked at the bag and saw one of the notes had a tear in it and whispered to her kid. The kid said he thought one of the notes had a tear in it, from what he could remember. The first lifeguard inspected the bag and said that proved she owned the money. He handed it over and said they'd just get her number as reference. They got her number. The entitled woman walked away whispering to her kid, probably congratulating him, and they ran off. 15 minutes later, another guy approached the first lifeguard. The unlucky guy said he'd lost some money in a Ziploc bag, and it was $120, he thought. The second lifeguard said they just had the entitled woman claim it and asked if he could prove it was his. The unlucky guy said yes, it had his number on the bottom, and he had his phone so they could call it. My sister and I didn't notice the number on it. The first and second lifeguards had this worried look on their faces. The first lifeguard said he'd call the entitled woman and put her on speakerphone. I could see the entitled woman walking back onto the beach with her kid, holding an ice cream. The second lifeguard told her someone else was claiming the money and asked if she could come back. The entitled woman said she was actually driving back home now and couldn't come back. The second lifeguard said that was strange considering he could still see her bag there. My sister pointed out the entitled woman on the beach and we all confronted them. The lifeguards looked angry because they knew she lied. The first lifeguard told her to hand them the bag. The entitled woman did, but it had like $30 left. The first lifeguard called the unlucky guy with the number on there, and it worked, proving the unlucky guy to be the rightful owner. The second lifeguard said she stole this cash. The entitled woman said that was just a coincidence and he just wanted the money from her. Her kid yelled that he wanted another ice cream. This turned into a screaming match with the entitled woman and her kid versus the first lifeguard. Second lifeguard, unlucky guy, me and my sister. I will skip it because nothing substantial happened here. The first lifeguard said they were calling the police because this was a criminal case of theft. She would be compensating the unlucky guy for the money she spent, plus extra. He called the police. The entitled woman said she wouldn't be doing any such thing. If the police arrived, she'd just tell them the unlucky guy paid them to say this. She cursed at the unlucky guy. The unlucky guy looked pretty shaken. The entitled woman literally tried to run off with her kid and the money, but got caught by the lifeguards, who were 10 times fitter than she was. The police arrived and she was arrested. The second lifeguard said sorry they couldn't give him all the money back. The unlucky guy said that was fine and thanked my sister and me so much for helping him find his money and standing up for him. This guy, being the absolute legend he was, gave us $5 each, and if he's reading this, he's amazing. This story ends with the unlucky guy getting paid $150 by the entitled woman, plus the money she didn't spend of the original $120. The entitled woman got a fine for theft and resisting arrest. My grandmother had been blind for as long as I could remember. She was this tiny, hunched-over woman who somehow had the hearing of a superhero. You couldn't sneak anything past her, which made visiting their house absolutely miserable as a kid. She'd catch you trying to sneak an extra cookie from 3 rooms away. My grandfather was actually pretty sweet, but he passed away when I was 11, leaving just my grandmother and her razor-sharp hearing. When my grandfather died, it hit everyone pretty hard. My mom and her 2 brothers knew their mother wouldn't be able to manage on her own, especially being blind and all. So they made this decision to give up their inheritances and let her keep everything so she could afford an in-home care assistant and whatever else she needed to stay comfortable. The middle brother was this awkward guy who'd been a veteran and somehow managed to save up quite a bit of money before going on benefits. He barely spent anything and just let his money sit in the bank. He was weird but harmless, and when he passed away a few years later, he actually left me a nice little inheritance that I really appreciated. Then there was the oldest brother. This guy was something else entirely. He had serious anger management problems and was one of those religious people who used their faith as an excuse to judge everyone else. He spent practically every waking hour at the synagogue, getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning to go pray or study or whatever. The guy was incredibly egotistical, sexist, racist, homophobic, and basically everything you wouldn't want in a family member. What made it even worse was that he couldn't hold down a job to save his life. He'd gone through a bunch of office positions before essentially becoming a stay-at-home husband, except he didn't do any of the actual house stuff. His wife, who had multiple PhDs in mathematics and did some kind of important research work, still had to do all the cooking, cleaning, and childcare while also being the sole breadwinner. Their kids were in their 30s and still called him daddy, which was absolutely revolting to witness. When my grandmother finally died, I was around 13 or 14. She'd never been particularly warm to any of us grandchildren, staying angry and bitter right until the end. The estate got divided up between my mom and her oldest brother, since the middle one had already opted out years earlier. Everything seemed to go smoothly at first. They sold the house, closed out accounts, got lawyers involved to make sure everything was fair, and split down the middle. Several years passed without any drama. Then one day when I was home from school, I heard my mom talking on the phone in the kitchen. She's half deaf, so she talks pretty loudly during phone calls, which meant I could hear most of the conversation from the next room. My mom asked if he was planning to come visit, but my uncle said no. He explained that he wanted to talk about their mother's estate instead. My mom seemed confused about why he'd bring up something that had been settled years ago. My uncle claimed he'd been going through some old paperwork and discovered they'd made a mistake with one of the accounts. When my mom asked what kind of mistake, my uncle told her that he'd found paperwork showing his name was the only one on one account, but they'd split the money from it anyway. He insisted she needed to send him back that money since it belonged to him. My mom sounded completely baffled and reminded him that they'd split everything 50-50. She pointed out that she'd already spent her share of that money on renovating her kitchen, which he'd seen when he visited for the holidays. My uncle suggested she could start paying him back in installments. Now, my mom might seem scattered sometimes, but she's actually incredibly organized when it comes to important stuff. She keeps files on top of files of every piece of paperwork related to family business. I'm pretty sure she remembered every single account number from that whole estate process. My mom told him he was out of his mind. She reminded him that there had been plenty of accounts with just her name on them, and those had been split evenly too. My uncle claimed their mother had wanted that account to be just for him. When my mom asked why their mother hadn't put that in her written wishes, my uncle insisted their mother had told him privately because he was the older child and would need the money more. My mom asked if this was going to become a legal issue and whether she should call her lawyer. She said she couldn't tell if he was being serious about all this. That's when I heard the yelling start. I came out of my room and leaned against the doorway to listen better. My uncle told her he was willing to get his own lawyer involved and could have them send over the paperwork to clarify things. My mom said absolutely not. She told him she couldn't believe he was being this selfish, and that if he really wanted to pursue this, he should take her to court. She slammed the phone down so hard I thought she might have broken it. When I asked if she was okay, she vented for a few minutes about her brother being impossible, but I figured that would be it. I mean, who actually follows through on threats like that over family money that was already legally settled? Turns out my uncle absolutely did follow through. He hired a lawyer and everything, trying to sue my mom for money that had been fairly divided years earlier. The whole thing was ridiculous, but it caused months of stress for our family. My mom got a phone call from someone in the court system explaining that my uncle's lawyer had dropped him as a client. Apparently, once the lawyer actually looked at all the paperwork and realized there was no legitimate case, he basically fired my uncle on the spot. My mom never heard from her brother again after that. He'd tried to steal money from his own sister based on some made-up story about their dead mother's secret wishes, gotten laughed out of court when his own lawyer realized how ridiculous the whole thing was, and then disappeared rather than face the embarrassment. He found out later that his wife had been furious with him over the whole thing. She'd apparently told him from the beginning that he was being an idiot and that he was going to destroy what was left of their family relationships over his greed. When the lawsuit fell apart, she made him sleep on the couch for months and refused to speak to him at family gatherings. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.